En la parte de arriba, esa cruz es el símbolo del cristianismo, ¿verdad?
Hola amigos, welcome back to my channel. In this episode, I would like to talk about learning Spanish in Xela Guatemala. First, I will talk about who should be studying Spanish in Xela, how's the life in Xela, what you should expect and what you should be aware of. Then I will share my experience of studying in the best school and a good school. Timestamp is in the description box. Xela is the second largest city in Guatemala, so it's more crowded than Antigua and San Pedro. However, it has more choices of everything as well as schools, which most of them are in Zone 1. I would say Xela is a good place for serious students who would like to study Spanish in Guatemala for long term. What does it mean by long term? Mostly foreigners can only stay here for 90 days. Then you can renew your visa once in Guatemala City for another 90 days. So in total, you got 6 months. The process is not complicated at all. You can check out my previous video. If you're in for writing an exam, many schools here offer the Dele preparation course, and it also has an exam center here. How about life in Xela? If you don't live in a homestay, you need to consider food and accommodation. There are many local markets in Xela where you can get fresh food, as well as some supermarkets where you can get some Western stuff. Let's be honest, if you're gonna stay here for long term, definitely you would like to eat your regular food instead of forcing yourself to be a local. If you don't like to cook, there's so many different types of restaurants and fast food chains in here, but it's not extremely cheap. Even though you eat in a local restaurant, in Zone 1 area, it's around $4 for a lunch set, but it's still affordable, and you won't find luxury restaurants in here anyways. Besides, there's so many cafes and bars where you can chill and meet some new friends. Accommodation is cheap. I have lived in 2 places in Zone 1. Both of them were around $200 per month for a private room with a private bathroom. I will talk about it more in my cost of living video. Because the cost of living is relatively low, especially accommodation, so it's a good place to have a normal, calm and comfortable life. If you'd like to go somewhere else, there's so many buses in here, but it's a bit challenging if you don't really speak Spanish. However, Uber is available, so you won't just stuck in this tiny little Zone 1. You can still go somewhere else. But if you don't like the city life, definitely it's not the place for you. Now let's talk about schools. As mentioned, most of the schools in Xela are in Zone 1 and they're not very spacious. Some schools they're using their garden as the classroom by placing some chairs and tables, and the class style in Guatemala is one-on-one, so that's like you're having 30 groups of people talking at the same time and they're quite close to each other. So for me, definitely it's not a very ideal study environment. Besides, classes start at 8 a.m. most of the time, and Xela is so cold during winter. So it means that you have to sit under a cold weather for 4 to 5 hours every single day. Then I found another school which was indoor, but it was very dark, and again the tables were quite close to each other. They also asked me for my passport copy for registration, which was very strange. I have studied in a few different Spanish schools before, and none of them has ever asked me for my passport copy or even want to take a look of my passport. The guy there, he was showing me his big file of passport copies from students, which was very odd. If you have time, it's better to visit a few schools before making your commitment. And fortunately, I find the best school at the end. Since most of them are in Zone 1, just find a place to stay in Zone 1 first would be fine. But in Xela, schools tend to be more busy. They might not be able to arrange classes for you right away, or they will ask you to do afternoon class instead. If you hate to get up early, afternoon class is perfect for you, but most of the students take morning classes because school activities are in the afternoon and usually they are free or you just pay for your transportation. There are so many things to do in Xela, but the transportation is not so convenient. So it's such a good opportunity to go with the school, and then you have your teacher as a tour guide to explain everything. I know not every school has activities, but in Xela there's no way you have nothing to do. When you look for a school, make sure that activities are included rather than just looking for a cheaper price. By talking about price, tuition in Xela is relatively expensive. Most of the school will quote you for 5 hours a day, which is like 25 hours per week. Total, you need to pay $185 a week. If you only take 3 to 4 hours a day, schools might not give you the morning class, but you can always negotiate. I believe in quality rather than quantity. More class time doesn't mean that you will improve your Spanish faster if you don't practice after the class. Now I'm going to share my experience in Xela. When I arrived in Xela, it was only 6 weeks away from my exam. So I went to the school which conducted the Dele exam. Their tuition was quite expensive for 4 hours a day, which is 20 hours a week. It was like $200. But I thought, okay, let's have a try. I just want to have some intense and professional training. When I was about to sign up, the director told me it's $250, not $200. I was shocked because I had emailed him before and he told me it's only $200. So he couldn't read or he tried to scam me. I didn't feel right and then I just walked away. After that, I found another school which was a bit old and small, and they had some rooms for students to rent. So basically it's a budget school. They put me in the afternoon class from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. My teacher was okay at the beginning by reviewing all the grammars with me. Then we spent all the class time practicing the daily exercises. So we need around 3.5 days to finish one exam, which was very efficient, but they were not very organized. One time I needed to wait for 2 days in order to do a listening exercise because they couldn't find the USB which had the audio. I was a little bit frustrated because the exam date was coming closer. I think it happens to all schools in here, they're just messy. I only stayed there for 3 weeks because the teacher was keep swearing all the time. She was not swearing at me, but you know, some people just like to swear and I found it very disgusting, and she was like spreading those negative and harmful energy. Besides, the class finished at 6 p.m. and the school didn't have too much light. So the last hours was always very dark. The school was quite small and we were like always sitting next to someone's bedroom or next to a bathroom. I just felt like I was in a garbage can. I checked with a couple in my Airbnb who were in the same school before and they felt like the same. And I searched, and I found the best school in Xela. Well, actually, it's the best school in my whole Spanish learning journey. The school has its own building. One part is for the school, one part is for some apartment units, so it already looks like a proper organization. Let's talk about the school part first. The first floor, it has a big office, a kitchen, washrooms, a hangout area, as well as a garden. Every teacher has her own room as her classroom and office. My teacher, her room has a very big window for the sunlight, a lot of reference books, a whiteboard, a computer provided by the school, and some chairs and tables as well. The office space is good enough for 2 students. Which is very, very impressive because I've never seen language school in Guatemala or in Mexico has this kind of amenities. So I was studying in quite a comfortable environment, and I had the opportunity to use those reference books. My teacher was a bit more mature and experienced, so the whole learning process was very, very smooth and efficient. Maybe because the school has a lot of exchange students from the US, you can tell that the teachers there are more professional with more valuable information. My experience is that, especially with young teachers, they don't have too much content in the conversation, which I find that it's such a waste of time talking to them. And with the excuse of practicing, they just try to ask you a lot of personal questions, which I absolutely hate. But my teacher, her attitude and approach were both very mature, and I could understand her easily. The school had activities almost every single day, including weekend. On the weekday, we had cooking class, we went for a short hike, we went to a church, or we had a spa. Yeah, so many things to do. On the weekend, usually we went for a long hike. Even though there were only 2 students at that time, they still organized activities. I have no clue why such a good school had only 2 students. As I mentioned, it has some apartment units. For 1-bedroom apartment, it's more than $400 a month. It's a bit pricey for one person, but it's very spacious and well equipped. There were 5 people working in the school besides teachers. They were all very, very friendly. Sometimes the director made lunch for us, or sometimes I made them curry. On my last day, the director made my favorite Guatemalan cuisine. It was so delicious. I was supposed to take a 2-week break and then went back to the school until my visa expired. But because of this quarantine thing, I couldn't go back to the school anymore, even though it's only 10 minutes away from me. If you're planning to study Spanish in Guatemala, I hope you find this video helpful. I also made videos about learning Spanish in Antigua and in San Pedro, so you can check out my previous videos. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye.